Imagine a world where the stories of ancient texts, revered for millennia, suddenly become just that, stories, not history. What if the narratives that have shaped the identity of entire civilizations, the very foundation of religious beliefs, turned out to be more about the imagination and the human condition than about actual events? This is not a hypothetical scenario, but a reality that modern biblical scholarship has grappled with, particularly in the study of the Hebrew Bible. The narratives of the Pentateuch and the Deuteronomistic history, which together form the primary history, have long been viewed as historical accounts. However, a closer look reveals a complex tapestry of stories, each with its own purpose and message, woven together not to record history, but to convey deeper truths about God, law, and human nature. One of the most striking examples of this complexity is found in the account of Moses' ascent to Mount Sinai. The text presents a narrative that seems to jump from one event to another without a clear sequence, leaving readers with a sense of confusion. Verses 12 to 15 describe Moses and his assistant Joshua ascending the mountain, leaving Aaron and Hur in charge. Verses 16 to 18, on the other hand, tell of a solitary ascent by Moses, where the mountain is shrouded in cloud and God's presence is like fire. Finally, verses 1 to 11 recount a different story altogether, where Moses and a group of leaders ascend the mountain to enjoy a meal in God's presence, and all of them see God without harm. These discrepancies suggest that the text as we have it is a compilation of different traditions, each with its own emphasis and theological point. The scribe who combined these stories was not concerned with creating a coherent narrative, but with preserving the traditions and ensuring that no piece of the story was lost. This approach reflects a view of the text as an archive rather than a novel, where the focus is on the preservation of tradition rather than the creation of a seamless story. The primary history, which includes the books from Genesis to Kings, is a vast narrative covering the history of Israel from its earliest origins to the Babylonian exile. However, modern scholarship suggests that this history is not a straightforward account of events, but a collection of stories and traditions that were shaped and reshaped over time to reflect the theological and ideological concerns of the people who wrote and preserved them. The Chronicler, who wrote 1 and 2 Chronicles, provides a contrasting view of Israel's history. While the primary history ends with the destruction of Jerusalem and the exile, Chronicles concludes with a message of hope, ending with the decree of Cyrus allowing the exiles to return to their land. This shift in perspective highlights the chronicler's focus on liturgical worship and the idea that people get what they deserve. The chronicler's version of history is not concerned with historical accuracy, but with reinforcing religious and moral lessons. In ancient Israel, the narrative books were likely read aloud in a liturgical context, such as during annual festivals in Jerusalem. The stories of the decline and fall of the kingdoms of Israel and Judah may have functioned as a form of national lament or confession of collective guilt. These narratives were not just about teaching moral lessons, but about engaging the people in a shared story that defined their identity and relationship with God. The complexity and contradictions in these narratives suggest that they were not intended to be read as historical documents, but as literature that illuminated the human condition and the nature of God. The stories of Moses, for example, are not just about a historical figure, but about the authority of God's law and the sublimity of God's presence. The contradictions in the text do not undermine its religious significance, but enrich it, offering multiple perspectives on the same events and allowing for a deeper engagement with the text. Modern scholars approach the narrative books of the Hebrew Bible from two main perspectives: those who focus on the origins and development of the texts, and those who focus on their literary and theological significance. The first group, often associated with the German-speaking world, produces complex theories about the sources and redactions that led to the final form of the text. The second group, more common in North America, reads the texts as finished wholes, emphasizing their literary qualities and the ways in which they can be interpreted and applied in contemporary contexts. Both approaches are valuable, but they often lead to different conclusions. The source-critical approach can provide insights into the historical and cultural context in which the texts were written, while the literary approach can help us understand the texts as works of art that continue to speak to us today. The tension between these two approaches reflects the ongoing debate in biblical scholarship about the nature and purpose of the Hebrew Bible. The narrative books of the Hebrew Bible are not just historical documents, but are also crucial in the formation of Jewish and Christian identity. They provide a shared narrative that defines the relationship between God and His people, and they offer a framework for understanding the world and one's place in it. The stories of the Exodus, the conquest of Canaan, and the establishment of the monarchy are not just about the past, but are also about the present and the future. They are stories of faith, struggle, and redemption that continue to inspire and challenge readers today. However, the realization that these narratives may not be historically accurate does not necessarily diminish their religious significance. The stories of the Hebrew Bible are not primarily about historical facts, but about deeper truths about God, human nature, and the human condition. They are meant to engage readers in a narrative world that leads to reflection and spiritual growth, rather than to provide a straightforward account of historical events. The insights of modern biblical scholarship can be challenging for traditional believers who have long seen the Hebrew Bible as a historically accurate account of God's dealings with His people. The idea that the narratives are more about imagination and theology than history can be difficult to accept. However, many non-conservative believers have come to see this realization as a way to engage with the text more deeply and to appreciate its literary and theological richness. The challenge for modern readers is to find a way to engage with the Hebrew Bible that honors both its historical and literary dimensions. This means recognizing that the narratives are not just historical documents, but are also works of art that continue to speak to us in new and profound ways. It means being open to the possibility that the contradictions and complexities in the text are not flaws, but are part of its richness and depth. In the end, the Hebrew Bible is not just a collection of historical documents, but a living text that continues to shape and inspire the lives of people today. The stories of Moses, the Exodus, and the kings of Israel and Judah are not just about the past, but are also about the present and the future. They are stories of faith, struggle, and redemption that continue to challenge and inspire us. Whether we read them as historical accounts or as literary works, the narratives of the Hebrew Bible remain a powerful and enduring part of the human story.